Welcome back to our MECH 1000 video. We're working on drawing 11.2, the MP3 player. And since the last video, I was working on creating this, what is now the last video here on MP3 player. And I experienced a power outage at my home. And so I lost this entire drawing. I hadn't saved it, so I had to recreate it entirely from scratch. But that allowed me to recognize a couple things about this drawing. One is I noticed that the dial here at the front projects out from the front face 0.06, but the center of the dial is actually recessed into the body of the MP3 player. I think I was looking at the side view of the drawing in the textbook, and I saw there was a 0.185 dimension. So that actually means this ellipse isn't right. I actually have to take this is the ellipse that's on the front face of this dial that sticks out away from the main body of the MP3 player. And what I should do is copy this up in this direction, up and to the right, 0.185. So that is recessed a little bit more. That should be a little bit thicker right there. And then I'll trim this off. The other thing I noticed was looking at the units. In the first video, I started drawing it and then realized, wait a minute, this can't be inches, or this thing would be over 10 inches tall, and that's just way too big. It must be millimeters. But then I realized, well, wait a minute, that would be way too small. So I'm thinking that these dimensions are actually in centimeters. So all that really changes for us is that when we go to our units, we can change this to, instead of being inches or unitless, set it to centimeters. Okay. And now the last things to finish up here to complete this drawing, now that I've recreated it from scratch a second time, is to fill in the screen with a gradient fill pattern, draw some symbols for the like rewind, fast forward, and play icons, and then put some text on here. So we can start with the fill pattern. It's a hatch pattern. So if we just open up our hatch and let's look at our different patterns that are available to us, we want to choose a spherical gradient pattern, which is going to kind of give it the illusion that it's shining in the center. So I'll click right inside there, and it makes a nice yellow to blue gradient. It slowly changes from one color to the other, but I think I'm just going to make this black and white, or actually that's true white down there. So black to white, that looks better for the gradient. Okay, and now I need to create these symbols. So change my isoplane to the front plane, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line across here and then stretch it out so it goes all the way across. And I'm going to trim it off, and I'll tell you the reason why I'm doing this. What I want to be able to do is I want to be able to snap to the midpoints of these lines to find the exact center point where I'm going to place those symbols that I'm about to draw. And I'll do the same thing in the vertical direction. Now I extend past the circle so I don't actually accidentally snap to something and make a crooked line. I want to make sure that I go perfectly vertical. I've got my ortho mode turned on to keep everything at the right angle. And then I can trim those endpoints. And now I can snap to these midpoints here. And I'm going to draw the symbol off to the side. We've got the kind of like the fast forward symbol. I'll start with that. So that starts with a vertical line of 0.2. And that triangle has a width of 0.173. and then I can connect the endpoints to make the triangle. So again, I'm making this triangle at an isometric angle, so it's not like the orthographic view that you see in the drawing. We have to kind of draw it obliquely at this isometric angle. Okay, I'll draw a line across the bottom here, and I'll draw a line up that is 0.2, and then move that into place. That goes right there. Then I can copy that line over. The width of the first rectangle is 0.05, and then there's a 0.025 gap between them, so that would be 0.075, 0.05 plus 0.025. And then I'll copy this last one over 0.05. And then I can just draw a continuous line from there to there, and then trim this all up. Trim that gap, that, and that. All right, so actually I guess what I drew here was the play symbol. That's going to go down here in the bottom. Play and pause. One triangle, two rectangles. Now I want to find the center of this. So I'm going to draw a line from one side to the other so that I can then move all of this from its midpoint. There it is. There's the midpoint. To the midpoint of... let's move it down. Sometimes if you're a little too close without being exact, it can be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to grab, there we go, that midpoint to, there we go. There's the midpoint there. So that has it perfectly centered where I want it to go. And I can delete those construction lines. I'm going to actually copy this now. I'll just copy it over to the side here. And the fast forward button has two triangles, but just one rectangle. So I'll copy this triangle to there, and then delete that rectangle. It's actually a parallelogram, but that's how we do it with isometric drawings. We draw everything obliquely, so the rectangles are actually parallelograms, and the circles are actually ellipses. So now I can move this symbol from its midpoint, there it is, to the midpoint right there. Didn't move it over. Let's try that again. Move this symbol from your midpoint. Where are you? There we go. Midpoint to... there it is. Make sure you actually verify the shape of the object snap that you're snapping to, so you actually get the one you want. I was looking for a midpoint, and that symbol is a triangle. Okay, so now the rewind symbol is just the arrow in the other direction, the triangle in the other direction. Unfortunately, I can't just mirror it over to the other side because of the way it's at an oblique angle, so I'm going to have to draw it from scratch. At least the triangle I am. Goes up 0.2, and then I'll draw a horizontal line, 0.173, and then connect those endpoints. Okay, so there's the first triangle. I'll copy this from there to there. That's for the second one. And then the rectangle, or parallelogram, is the same. So I could redraw another one, or just copy the one I've already done. Seems easier to me to copy what I've already done. And then I'll move this from its midpoint there over to the midpoint. Where are you? There it is. There's the triangle. There's midpoint. And now I can get rid of these construction lines. Alright, now I need to make the text. The text says menu. So I'm going to start with some multi-line text. And I'm going to write out in all caps, menu. Now that's not the font I want. I don't know how that TXT font got set as my standard. Actually, hold up. I don't want annotative. No. close this text editor. Yes, I want to change that stuff. Actually, let's just delete this. Let's try again. Multi-line text. Make sure we're choosing standard. Okay, it is highlighted standard. Okay, so standard is the style I'm using now. I want it to say menu, but I do not want the font to be TXT. I want it to be Arial. Not Arial Black, that's a little too thick. There we go, just plain Arial. And so I need to make it oblique, just like the rest of everything I've drawn here. Just like how the circles aren't circles, they're ellipses, and the rectangles are actually parallelograms. The text needs to be skewed at an oblique angle. So if I go under formatting, there I can change the angle at which it's at and make it, I think 30 degrees. Actually, I want to go negative 30, don't I? There we go. So that changes the oblique angle. And then, let's see, I know I could just rotate this if I needed to, but I'm wondering if there is a way I can do it within the text editor here. Maybe not. There probably is if I looked for it hard enough. But I know that I can achieve the same thing by just taking this and rotating it negative 30 degrees. Okay, and let's change the justification here. I do want that justification to be middle center justified. And the reason for that is so I can take that grip right in the middle and use it to move it where I want it to go. So I want to make sure I'm getting that front ellipse, draw a line straight up, trim it off at the inside and outside diameters of this dial so that I can use the midpoint there. I'm going to highlight it, grab that middle grip, move it to the midpoint, and then I can delete that construction line. So there we go. We've got the text, we've got the symbols, we've got the gradient fill pattern. I've got everything else drawn just the way I want it. I fixed the offset of that, the center of that dial, which I noticed earlier, and hopefully I haven't made any other mistakes. We've got the unit set to centimeters. So the last thing I'll do here is set up the paper space for this drawing, but I think that's going to have to wait until the next video. So that does it for the MP3 player. We've completely drawn it and gotten everything just so. Now we just need to set up the drawing, and that'll happen in the next video, so I'll see you then.